are live. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm one of your co-hosts, Blake Ruffino. Alongside me is my counterpart and co-host, Joe DeLeone. Good evening, good sir. How are you?
I'm doing absolutely great, Blake. I have to say, I know that we've got a lot to break down today. I know that we kind of went into the week thinking, hey, week 5 was going to be amazing, and we've got all these big games. It somehow managed to outperform our expectations, and I don't think that enough of us are appreciating the craziness that we witnessed this weekend.
Well, it started on Friday night as Virginia was able to upset Florida State and then storm the field faster than any known college in the history of man was able to storm a field. And, Joe, from there, it was on. And I thought that the entire day gave us massive talking points. Now, the noon segment didn't really I don't know if there was great games. I mean, there were a couple.
Yeah.
But it obviously made Twitter explode because Sam Pittman, it was inevitable, which we'll talk about tonight, as Sam Pittman has been fired at the University of Arkansas.
The funniest thing about this, by the way, I was on Mad Dog Sports Radio this morning with my guy, Carrington Harrison, who's a friend of the show, and he listens to the show. And I said to him, this was like an hour before the firing. I said to him, I have a feeling that we'll be texting each other in an hour because the firing comes through. And lo and behold, it happens. I just don't know how you can keep a coach after getting embarrassed that bad. They gave up. That Arkansas team is mailed it in, and there is nothing more to be tapped out from Pittman. It's time to start looking for who they're going to hire next.
The only bad thing about Notre Dame yesterday was they went for a fake punt up 42. That's fucking.
I don't think it's that deep, dude. I really don't. Stop the play. Have some pride and stop the play.
No, you have a lame duck coach, and they finally got a 3 and out. When you do shit like that, it's going to come back and bite you.
I don't care. I would like for my coach to have and my team to have some balls. Like, I really want us to have some balls for once.
Balls. That's being Bush League.
I don't think it's Bush League. I think being a little chippy and just going for it.
Like Dan Lanning. It's not what's not having balls is going for a fake punt up 42. You're going to get your shit kicked in, and when you do stupid shit like that,
well, we didn't get shit kicked in against Arkansas. I will gladly make plays like that happen when Notre Dame needs stuff to rally.
No, if you were down 40 and a team did that to Notre Dame, bullshit.
I'd be pissed. I'd absolutely be pissed, but I'd have also at the same time. I understand. Arkansas fans have a right to be pissed, but at the same time, stop the play. If your team is that bad and you've given up, that is on you.
Unwritten rules that you go by. And young coaches need to understand that there's unwritten rules. And quite frankly, I get it. They suck. We all know they suck. They got a lame duck head coach. But there also comes a time where Sam Pittman also knows a lot of more people than Marcus Freeman does. And I'm going to tell you right now, people around college football are not going to tolerate you doing stupid shit like that. They're not. And before you say that they will, I guarantee you that they won't. So you go for a fake punt up 42. That's bullshit. I'm sorry, but it's bullshit.
Wait. Okay, so first of all, I don't think anyone's so motivated to avenge Sam Pittman against Marcus Freeman. Nobody on the schedule remaining for Notre Dame is going to be in a position to do that, except maybe USC. And I know Lincoln Riley's got no tie to Sam Pittman. And on top of this, Blake, they started the season.
His offensive line coach was a GA for him a long time ago, wasn't he?
Okay. That is a very string of a tie that would be required to make that one work. Blake, they started the season 1-2, and a bunch of people across the national media, especially betting analysts, were projecting that Arkansas could pull out an upset and that Notre Dame wasn't going to play well. God forbid he wants to motivate his team. I don't think that there's anything wrong with that.
If you need to motivate your team when you're up 42-13, then no, you don't do that stuff, Joe. If this was another team, you'd be calling for their head. You know it. All right. Now, let me take my lick here. How about them Buckeyes, Blake? 6 sacks. What about that upset? I took the over like Lane Kiffin told me to. Well, you didn't hit. Did you? No, it's 50. No, the over didn't hit. It was 52.5. The over did not hit. So you didn't win. Hey, man, sometimes you pick upsets and you lose.
Yeah, I don't know if that's going to satisfy the Ohio State fans. But to that point, by the way, I didn't agree with
Really
you.
close early. When they almost scored and went up 7 and then the play got called back, I almost texted you like, holy shit, after all the trolling I did this week on this, and they're up 7.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't gonna come to fruition. Like I said during our preview, I thought it was going to be a little bit closer. And I think we're actually not going to get to the Ohio State game today because there's so many other crazier outcomes that really
Florida State.
Right. Yeah, we have to talk about the Florida State game that's kind of bumping the Ohio State game. But I think it goes to show you were in a spot against an incredibly mobile quarterback in DeMond Williams, and all of your athletes did a great job of playing in contention.
Yeah, they did.
It's as simple as that to me.
I've got to be honest.
Athletes, they played well.
I think Ryan Day is the most calmest human being on the planet right now. He doesn't overreact.
Yeah. No.
So good to them. And listen, people around the country will say, oh, they beat Washington. I don't give a shit. You went into a very hostile environment and played a good team, and you came out with a win. Good for them.
Washington should be ranked, by the way. I'm sick of this crap. They should be ranked over BYU. They are such a better team.
Didn't BYU lose? Didn't Colorado hold on, if I'm not mistaken?
They should have been. Sorry, what I meant is that last week going into the game, BYU held on 24-21.
Okay.
Yeah. I didn't watch the end of the game. I was asleep.
I didn't either. I went to sleep. Time for Coach Prime to be out of Colorado. Were we there yet?
No, I don't. That's a little too reactive. I'm not ready to go there yet.
All right. Everybody do us a favor. Hit the like and share. Share to all those groups if you're on Facebook and to all those social media pages. You're watching us, listening to us on YouTube. Like, subscribe, notification bell, wherever you listen to podcasts, rate, review, and subscribe. Every Ruffino and Joe show is brought to you by our good friends over at FanDuel. Go over to FanDuel.com today. Sign up today. Joe, we had a funeral, and I forgot to post my parlay. Clearly, I didn't hit. I will post it next week. Saturday was a really rough morning for us, but
no worries.
Didn't hit. Did do it, though, over at FanDuel. So go over to FanDuel.com. If you got the discretionary income, go ahead and do it. It's fun to play. If you don't know what you're doing, ask. Don't go over there willy-nilly and not doing it. If you have questions, thoughts, details, go to FanDuel.com/RG for more. And Joe's got our good friends, and it's going to talk about our good friends as well over at Game Time.
We're not doing game time today.
Okay, I guess we're not doing game time today. All right, well, I wrote game time down. I guess I was wrong there. Actually, that is not my
No
notes.
free ads, Blake. No free ads.
Well, actually, if you look, I'm literally on the AYS postgame, read game time. So, yeah, should have done that. All right, let's flip the page here. Nevertheless, hit the like and share. Let's get moving here. Everyone does us a favor and hit the like and share. We do have, before we get rolling here, Roy sent a $50 super chat. Good evening, good sir. He said, good afternoon, fellas. Blake, I hope your prayers got answered, and I hope all is well, bud. Joe, hope all is well with you and your family, too. Checking in from Thibodaux, Louisiana. Yeah, look, I'll just say this. Yesterday was a little rough.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Thank you for everybody that reached out. It was a pretty rough day, a really rough week after our Tuesday show. Yeah. So thank you for everybody. Royce, thank you so much. I do greatly appreciate that, good man. Thank you, man. All right. Oregon and Penn State, the whiteout in Happy Valley. Joe, a massive game, a very fun game to watch last night as it goes into overtime. Penn State going down, coming back, tying it up, going into double overtime. Man, this was a fantastic football game. Oregon able to intercept Drew Allar at the end by the number one portal safety in the country, and they're able to hold on. Joe, I had to go rewatch this game a couple times. It was that fun. But your thoughts on recapping the game, Oregon and Penn State?
I think the most important thing here, Blake, I said this during the offseason, and I think that we've already gotten a lot of proof for it just 5 games into the season, 5 weeks into the season. Dante Moore, his skill set helps unlock Oregon's offense to a level that I think many people didn't expect. And that's crazy to say, knowing that Dylan Gabriel and Bo Nix were Heisman finalists each of the last 2 years. I think that we're seeing now this team that wasn't really expected to be in the top 2 of the Big Ten. Everybody talked about Ohio State and Penn State.
Replacing a lot, right?
Yeah, everyone overlooked them. Blake, I am really excited for how Dante Moore is taking this team to another level, because that kid, and I know that we're going to talk about Drew Allar, that kid had a lot of really difficult, tight situations where he needed to execute. and he made difficult throws. He evaded pressure. He was able to make throws on the run while improvising. Like, this team, I really think, has gotten better from last year. And I really think they are positioned to get to a national championship this season if they continue to play the way that they did on the road at night in one of the hardest road environments in all of college football. Blake, I'm just beyond excited for this Oregon team.
Well, it's not only that. So in reference to the game, to elaborate a little bit more to what you just discussed, Joe, they went for it on fourth down how many times in the first half? I mean, I remember 3, and I'm not looking at it right now. But they weren't able to get the second one on the first drive, but they do go for it on fourth down 3 times. Joe, Dante Moore ran it twice. Talk about faith in your team, but more than less, Joe, think about this. This is the first time in a big-time environment, and I know you want to probably consider Northwestern, but a big-time environment on the road, Happy Valley, Penn State coming off a bye week, and you're going for it on fourth down, and you're putting the ball in Dante Moore's hands for simple run plays. And I thought that they were a little bit sluggish in the first half. Missed a field goal, couldn't convert some third downs in the first half. Penn State defense coming up massively big. But they had a game plan. Listen, we don't give a shit. We're going for it on fourth down. And they continue, as Dan Lanning's philosophy, listen, I trust my players. We're going to be aggressive. We're going for it on fourth down, and there's not going to be much that you can do about it. And I think to your point about Dante Moore, Joe, I think about the second half. So even in the first half, they were dipping their toes in the water and doing it. Trusting your defense. Look, they went for it on fourth down, don't get it. Penn State comes out, runs a screen, and big number 52 with all the athletic ability blows up the screen. They knew that they could do what they were going to do. So you're talking about not only trusting in Dante Moore and your offense, what you're also talking about is just the overall faith that they have in a young quarterback that's going to start growing now at such a massive rate. But, Joe, I thought that they really started to get moving when a couple of things happened. The 3rd and 10 run in the fourth quarter was a massive deal. But the biggest play was on 3rd and 7 at the 7-minute mark in the third quarter when he's flush right and he hits Sadiq, and just a beautiful throw. And, Joe, they started scoring. There was nothing Penn State could do to them after that. They continued to be aggressive, and I think that you saw one of the most talented quarterbacks in the country emerge last night from the ashes and do the things. But, Joe, the biggest thing is, did he make elite throws? Yes. The biggest thing is how calm he looked in the pocket and how calm he looked on the run. The throw to Sadiq will go down, if he's a Heisman finalist, will go down on his play log of plays that they're showing. After that, think about this. They would continue and start scoring touchdowns. That's how big of a momentum boost it was. I also got to say this, Joe. I was a little not worried or skeptical, but I was wondering how their running game was going to get going. And Hill is absolutely a beast. The burst that he has coming out of the backfield is insane. But Dante Moore in the second half and really leading into it was a big deal.
Absolutely. And by the way, on FanDuel, for anyone who's keeping track of the Heisman standings, on FanDuel, Dante Moore plus 700 odds leading the Heisman discussion. Jeremiah Smith right behind him at plus 950, and Ty Simpson, who I'm going to hype up in a segment, at plus 950 as well. Dante Moore absolutely deserves to lead the Heisman discussion as of right now for the way that he played in this game. And that was a big narrative that a lot of people were talking about and we talked about on this show. I got asked about it like 4 different times on radio spots that I did during the week of what should we expect from this game. And part of me was wondering, does Drew Allar step up when the lights got the brightest and everybody needed him to be their best player? And he didn't. And would Dante Moore continue to build off of the momentum he's shown against bad opponents? And he did. We need to sometimes lean into the evidence that's been presented to us. And when a kid looks natural at playing the position, they are going to find ways to succeed for their team in crucial spots. You pointed out, by the way, what he was doing as a runner. He was so tough and gutsy. There were times where he was just barreling through defenders, and he did not need to put his body on the line. And he chose to do it because he wanted to get his team in a position to win. I have a bit of a thought that kind of opens up the conversation with Penn State as well, where Dante Moore has become what Drew Allar was supposed to be for Penn State. And what I mean by this is Allar needed to take this big step this year in order for them to become a national championship caliber team. He needed to be more decisive. He needed to be more accurate. He needed to be more consistent. He needed to make the clutch plays when his number was called. And that hasn't come to fruition.
I got to push back. I got to push back.
Wait, okay. Let me just finish what I'm saying here with this before I let you hop in on that.
Okay.
Dante Moore has been that type of an elevator for his team, and nobody expected it from him. As I just said a second ago, they have gotten better from last year, and I think a big driving force for that not only are the guys like Washington and Sadiq and DK Moore and all these guys making big plays, it's mainly for the fact that they've got a leader who is a very, very gifted passer who deserves to be in these discussions for the Heisman and for the 2026 NFL draft.
I do think Oregon needs to get Hill a little bit more involved in the run game.
I agree too.
Look, you ran the ball for 4.5 yards a carry. You only gave him 10 touches. The screen for a touchdown that he had was explosive. I got to push back on your Allar thing. I want to go back to Oregon, but I want to just touch on this first. Okay. He did have 3 massive runs, 2 on fourth down and 1 on third down. He hit the post to Ross. He had the late score touchdown. I get what you're saying, and maybe to some extent, but at the same time, that elite, okay, this is what I want to say this about and give credit to Oregon on this. Joe, Katron Allen was the one getting the bigger runs. They held Nick Singleton to 11 carries to 21 yards. They didn't allow him to do anything. So when you're talking about Oregon and you're talking about that run game and what Penn State was supposed to lean on, I don't think anybody thought that Drew Allar was going to be able to lead them by throwing the football. Look, you ran the ball 35 times, and the best running back that everybody thought coming into the season is not getting it done. It's been, and even from Penn State people's point of view, Katron Allen the last couple of weeks, and even this week is the one that's really been getting things going. It was Allar on third down and short. It was Allar on fourth down and short that was running the football and picking up these third downs and fourth downs, Joe. Listen, throwing the football, he was not great. Now, I'm not going to – you're right there. But he made some massive throws late, and he made some big decisions late. I get what you're saying in the second half. Turnover is a big – or the second half turnover. The second overtime turnover is a massive deal, and you can't throw that ball. But I want to kind of focus a little bit on this. I know Katron Allen had some big runs on you, especially in the second half, the one that he broke down the sideline, the fourth down run that he had where he cut it back. It was just – he made some – look, you stopped him. He just broke a couple of tackles, and he was able to bust one. That's what good running backs are going to do. But I got to admit something here. I never thought going into this game that Nick Singleton would be held to under 2 yards a carry unless he got hurt. And quite frankly, they said, meaning Oregon, we're going to stop him, and there's not shit you're going to be able to do about it. And, Joe, that was the biggest thing for Oregon for me going into this game. Arguably the best back did nothing on you all night long on the road.
And I think that that's really telling, Blake, to how defensively Oregon, despite sending Derek Harmon and others to the NFL last year.
Washington's a dog. He's the best interior defensive line in the country.
This was the whole thing. And I remember there have been instances where I've spoken to people or have read comments where people were pushing back on this. We said this, that this year Oregon could potentially be more dangerous because all of the high 4-star, 5-star kids that they had been recruiting that were contributing a little bit and were underclassmen were now ready to play in full-time roles.
Right.
So now you have all of these dudes that are going around wreaking havoc. Penn State's offensive line is one of the best in the country. It's at least a top 10 offensive line. And they made it look like it was a JV squad out there with some of the big plays that they were able to have. To be very specific on Allar, I don't disagree with you. I think that part of the problem when we talk about Allar, it's very easy to just see what everybody's saying on Twitter and go, Drew Allar sucks, Drew Allar sucks, Drew Allar sucks.
Right.
He had a number of really unbelievable and just jaw-dropping throws. That
the post to Ross was insane.
That important throw to Ross that set up the game to be tied was possibly the best throw that he's made, and probably will go down as one of the best throws of the season. He also had a couple of these throws where it doesn't look that impressive, but when you reframe it and you rewatch it from the offensive line angle on the game, on the broadcast, he's like off platform. He's getting pressured and he's just zipping the ball out of his hands to his running back or to receivers. He can do a lot of great things, but Blake, this is the problem with Drew Allar. He's not consistent. It's too volatile. We can't have the ridiculous highs and then the lows of throwing a pick into an area where Thieneman made a great play, but he threw it somewhere the ball was not supposed to be, man. I just don't understand how we've gotten to this point where we were hoping he would make the improvement, he would get better, and he stayed exactly the same. It just doesn't click for him, and I hate that for him because he would be a really great player, and he would be in the Heisman conversation, and he would be a top 10 pick if he could just figure out how to make the right decisions and was more consistent with his ball placement.
Well, I'll give you this. I mean, look, in the third quarter, they had the 3 and out. He tried to get Hudson involved. He tried to get Trevor Pena involved. Nick Singleton, he almost threw an interception a couple of times. I'm with you there. I just wanted to point out that I didn't think he had a great game. I also don't think he had a horrible game. I got to get on Andy Kotelnicki on a couple of things. Now, one thing that you could say is I do think Kotelnicki had to scheme guys open more than just those guys going out there. Look, you spend a lot of money at receiver, and you're not getting those guys involved enough. Asking Trevor Pena after what we saw him do a year ago to not exceed what he showed a year ago, I think it's a little bit criminal. They're not trying to get Trevor Pena the ball enough, quite honestly, and you're trying to do some things that Penn State did in the past with a guy who was so explosive a year ago that, quite honestly, Joe, you're giving him 2 targets. That's great. Well, he had 2 catches for 16 yards. That's inexcusable. I'm trying to get Nicholas Singleton involved in the pass game. I get it. I understand it. But Trevor Pena's got to be more of a vocal point on this. I will say this too. In the game, the little jet sweep power action and then the fake reverse touchdown was beautiful by Kotelnicki to tie the game. But they got to be able to get Trevor Pena more involved here or they're not going to do it. Now, listen, I think when we look at Oregon before I kind of flip over full-time to Penn State here, I think Oregon might be one of the more complete teams. I think you have a couple of them. But, Joe, there's just not a lot of – you're not going to out-talent them a lot. Now, you can and you can get them and you can out-scheme them in a couple of things. The thing for me is, Joe, they're very young and inexperienced. And then they're still playing like this and able to go on the road. And how emotional Dan Lanning was after the game was because he took a young team on the road and won. DeCorian Moore is as advertised. He is as advertised. I do think that they need to run the ball a little bit more because, listen, it only takes one for Hill to bust one wide open and give you some really good yards. But overall, man, defensively, they were good. They only held them to 3 points in the first half, even though their offense could get moving. I know they kind of broke down there at the end, but they held strong, and Thieneman got the pick there at the end to win it.
Yeah, and this was a tremendous performance by DeCorian Moore, and I think that this is one of those real big motivators for a young kid like this that can be a big playmaker. And we saw a couple big plays here and there against their weaker opponents. But, man, you come out here and you lead your team in receiving yards and you have some of those big receptions the way that you did. The other part about this, too, Deer Hill, I was talking to Ryan Roberts, friend of the show, after the game, and we were texting about it. Notre Dame was really high on him as a recruit, and he was saying that he thinks that this kid is unbelievably gifted. I think that when you couldn't really get Whittington going and you couldn't get some of these other running backs in the mix, you had to turn to somebody new. I want to see more of Hill, as you said. Let's get him more than 10 carries next game because there is a real shot to start establishing a little bit more balance. I think that there could be even more offensive production in the future against some of these tough defenses if someone like Hill can turn into an asset.
Turn to Penn State. Joe, how do you come off a bye week and have 3 points in the first half? When are you going to get over this hump? Because at some point, James Franklin's going to have to get over this hump. You spent a lot of money and you had a lot of production that returned. But, Joe, what have we seen about teams that have a lot of production returning? They're not doing shit. Just for everybody that's keeping score at home, it's the team that look. These good the best players that are returning are the best players, because of course they are. Joe, how do you come out? I ask you again though, how do you come out of bye week and have 3 points in the first half? I mean, I get it. Oregon could get nothing going on the road in the first half. Nothing. Missing a field goal. Nothing. I mean, that is as bad and lackluster as I've seen them in a half. And I get this the best team you play, but this is why you test yourself early. This is why you test yourself. And I know you could say, well, Blake, Oregon didn't really test themselves. Well, at least they played Oklahoma State. At least they are trying to. But you going out there and playing shit-ass schedules and not testing yourself early bit you in the ass last night when you got punched in the mouth in the first half. Now, Joe, a lot of people are going to ask you, should they have kept Prabula and told Allar to move on? That's up to y'all. I'm not getting into that.
That's tough to litigate at the that's a complicated issue.
But the question becomes, Joe, they're going to beat everybody on their schedule not named Oregon and Ohio State potentially. And you continuously don't get over that hump. When are you going to be able to do it?
Honestly, Blake, I don't really have much of an answer for you to that question, because I know that's kind of the big talking point at the current moment is what the hell are we supposed to do with this Penn State team, where this was supposed to be the big one. This was supposed to be the momentum builder that was supposed to drive your national championship run, that was supposed to shut down all the doubters that James Franklin couldn't win the big game. The list just keeps compiling. He's a good coach. Blake, I'm sorry. He's never going to really reach the point that I think everybody expects him to, where he is in the conversations with the Ryan Days and the Kirby Smarts, or let's even take it a step back, the guys that are just consistently successful or at least gone on some playoff runs like Marcus Freeman and Brian Kelly, who's reached playoffs, and Dan Lanning, who's now starting to build himself up as one of the top coaches in the sport.
I think Sark's in there.
Right. We could name a few more, but my takeaway is James Franklin is who he is. And I saw this one conversation point today that was, should Penn State fans want him to be gone? And it's kind of the Dabo conversation that we brought up in the past, but very different, because Penn State's still really good this year and they're going to be really good. But have they hit their ceiling? And should they maybe be inspired to look elsewhere? I think that there are coaches that would kill to have this job that have ties to the region. You know who I would just randomly throw out there, Blake, that's from the tri-state area and knows how to recruit the area that's around Penn State? You know what I'm going to say? Graham Brown. And I know that they played bad against Duke, but I would if Fran Brown is going to get hired for one of these big jobs, I would strongly consider if I want to keep James Franklin. I'm just saying. He's from New Jersey, and they recruit heavily in New Jersey and Pennsylvania and the surrounding area. I'm just saying that is a slam dunk, and if he ends up somewhere else, they're going to be kicking themselves watching him produce and turn a program into a consistent winner.
I just don't think you can move on from constant 11-win coach. And that's that. That's the point, I get it, and it's only going to take one of these to get over it. And Joe, it could come this year, could come in the playoff, who knows? But I do think that they try. This is what I think is happening from the outside looking in. Mm-hmm. I feel like Penn State is trying to outthink the room constantly, instead of just relying on being a good team and going with what works. Like, for an example, what took you so long to get Ross involved?
Seriously.
What took so long? Oh, well, he got injured, but we knew it was going to be – okay, well, you got to throw shit at the wall and figure out what happens. And by the way, Joe, I get what you're saying with Allar. I understand it. I'm there. That kid's got guts, and I'm not walking away from him, and I don't think anybody should walk away from him because he gave you everything he got. But once Nick Singleton went down, and not literally, when you couldn't give him moving, you could do nothing. And so, listen, this is a massive win for Oregon and a devastation for Penn State. And look, you got to regroup because you got one more of these big ones, and you're going to have to win it. Like this, it all comes down to this now for a couple of things. So we'll see there. All right, Joe, we got a couple of super chats. We got one of LSU and Bama. Let's get to those during their segments here. Joe, Georgia versus Alabama. The Crimson Tide go into Athens and knock off the Georgia Bulldogs. When we recap this game, what are your thoughts about it?
Blake, I got to start off by saying this one bit here, and there's a lot that we can unpack here. By the way, I think, to be very clear, I know Georgia, the conversation about Georgia is going to kind of come around, but I don't think we're in a panic position for Georgia. I know that a lot of people want to panic. I just think that this was a great game by both teams. But the separation point, Blake, it was Ty Simpson. I want people to start to respect Ty Simpson. I was really frustrated after the the Florida State game. I thought that he had to do everything to keep them relevant and alive in that game, and he was getting no help. And one of my takeaways was that if they can correct and start to improve on some of their discipline and assignment issues, and they rallied around Ty Simpson, that there was redeemability. And I felt like there was a lot more motivation and focus from this team, and Ty Simpson made some unbelievably fantastic throws. I think that kid has a fantastic arm. He's got such ease driving the ball into tight windows, and he has fantastic poise. And you saw, too, that he's an emotional leader. I think that this is what this Alabama team has needed. They've needed a quarterback of his skill set to work in Ryan Grubb's offense, and Ryan Grubb completely outcoached Glenn Schumann. That is what unfolded here. It felt like Glenn Schumann had no idea what to do to counter everything that Simpson and Grubb were able to put out there. I'm going to stand by this, Blake. I think that this Alabama team is going to get back to being a legit threat because Ty Simpson looked as good as he did.
Yeah, he looked great. And see, to add on to what you just said here, Joe, they were 13 of 19 on third down, mainly due to the decisions that Ty Simpson was making, whether it's running, whether throwing, didn't matter. He knew exactly what to do at every single – see, this is what I think more than Ty Simpson. Does he have the biggest arm? No. Is he the fastest guy? No. Is he the biggest guy? No. Is he the most athletic guy? No. But he knew everything that he needed to do to win. He was the most prepared. Here's what I'd say. Out of everything that we saw this week, out of every single quarterback in the country that played, he was by far the most prepared for the team that he was playing against. Meaning he knew he threw every pass with a high amount of conviction. And Joe, even to an extent, you have Ryan Williams on a post route where he drops, which was an amazing throw by Ty Simpson. Should have been caught by your superstar wide receiver and a touchdown. The thing about this game, when you rewind it, how many times that Bama got in the third down, run the ball, put the ball in Ty Simpson's hands and let him make a play. They did it 19 times. Joe, to think about that, you're closer to being half of the plays that you ran coming on third down than anything. 19 conversion attempts on third down, and you got 13 of them. That is what you kept Georgia off the field. They couldn't get in a rhythm offensively. You're like, listen, we think that we can just nickel and dime and then start hitting some shots here. And Ty Simpson did it. And then, Joe, when Kirby and Schumann got punched in the mouth and didn't really know, then you put Caden Proctor out as a wide receiver and you let a 360-pound dude catch a screen. And quite honestly, the most
so fired up
that I've ever seen in my life. And by the way, what a run by Proctor. What a run. Get moving, big fella. Okay, that was a hell of a run. Ty Simpson knew what to do. And I think that when we talk about college football, we talk about this in the NFL a lot, right? We talk about, oh, man, Brady was locked in this week, film, and Brady was locked in, Manning was locked in, Allen was locked in, Mahomes, you name them. The guy that was the most prepared quarterback in the country this week was number 15, Ty Simpson. And, Joe, you start asking the question, hey, the first time you were with Ryan Grubb, it was on the road at Florida State, and you got punched in the mouth. And now you go back on the road a second time, and you're able to overcome. He looked great, man. He really did.
I just generally thought, and it's hard to sometimes remember what like your thoughts are when in different weeks because we talk so much. Sometimes it's easy to forget what our takes were. But if I remember correctly, part of our conversations after the Alabama game were that it was too soon to completely overreact to the degree of Kalen DeBoer was cooked. This is the beginning of the end.
People are posting his buyout money.
Yeah, well, right. They're posting his buyout. There were odds listed on sports books for where he was going to, or not where he was going to go, who their next head coach was going to be. There was just this immediate assumption that it was done. And my thought at the time of the Florida State game was, this is a red flag, but it does not mean that they are screwed. It's a red flag that a lot of the problems from last year with the missed assignments, the lack of tackling, the penalties, all of the silly, dumb, avoidable issues that stuck around, that was problematic. But there was still room for improvement, and it helped that they had this little buffer before they had to play the Georgia game where they could work through and figure out some of those problems.
That's what a team on a bye week looks like, not what Penn State looked like.
Like seriously, like that is what needs to be discussed here, and why a lot of times, or something that is ultimately overlooked when we talk about the importance of bye weeks, something that Notre Dame did on one side of the ball but not on the other is another example of that, where their offense looks completely different, which we'll get to later on in the show. Blake, I also think too, what's incredible for Alabama is the run game leaves a lot to be desired, but I think that there still were some redeemable plays from running backs and Jam Miller providing contributions that should make Alabama fans feel a little bit better that as the season progresses, it's slowly going to get better.
Well, and I know that Simpson is climbing up the FanDuel odds. You talked about this earlier. What was the odds again on FanDuel? Did you have it? You remember?
Third at plus 950, tied with Jeremiah Smith.
So, I mean, look, I think Kirby was right when he said in the middle of the week, I don't know if there's a hotter quarterback in the country right now than what Ty Simpson has showed. And just to kind of reemphasize that, I mean, listen, Joe, he was 24 of 38. There were some things he needs to clean up on some early downs. But again, the third down passing was elite, 24 for 38, 276, and 2 touchdowns. I will say this. I felt that Alabama played with a purpose offensively and defensively for what it's worth. You know, Hubbard, who got really ridiculed in week 1 and his effort against Florida State, forces the Frazier fumble, which I thought was a massive deal there. But I want to push back on one thing, okay? In the second half, offensively, you did some good things, but you missed a field goal. You had a turnover on downs. You had a 3-and-out. You had a punt, and then you end the game, and you were able to get a drive. Joe, they didn't score in the second half. And I do think Georgia figured it out. Georgia tackling early, they could not bring anybody down, and they got punched in the mouth. And I think that when you go back and watch that first half, they're out of assignment, they're out of alignment, and Alabama was able to counter that. The only thing about Bama would be the second half, they weren't able to really sustain and get in. And it was Georgia that kept putting the pressure on in certain situations. But, man, it was impressive. Ty Simpson looked impressive, needs to clean some things up. But they were able – this is how I would equate it to. They capitalized on all the Georgia mistakes. Every time Georgia got momentum or was trying to get momentum, they would answer. What do I mean? Well – they got a touchdown. Alabama scored right back at the end of the second quarter to make it 24-14. That's what I'm talking about. Every single time Georgia offensively was able to get things going, ties the game even of itself, or was down 3, whatever it was, they were just able to respond. But Georgia tackling the open field was horrible, and I felt like really just on both sides of the ball, Bama played with a purpose, and quite frankly, they looked like that they needed to look with the talent that they had, and that's what I'd say.
Yeah, so specifically for Georgia, by the way, where this outcome was produced, I think that it's easy to just simply say that they have a secondary issue, and I don't think that it's a little bit more complex than that. It felt like against Josh Heupel, they got out-coached and they got out-schemed. It felt like against Ryan Grubb in Alabama, they got out-coached and they got out-schemed. We know that Georgia has a tremendously talented secondary with a bunch of former 5-stars roaming on the back end.
Well, they're not playing like it.
They're not. And I think that you have that stupid, silly mistake by Ellis Robinson where he launched himself in one of the funnier but also more problematic mistakes that you could have made late in the game. Blake, I have to push a message that we had last year after they lost to Alabama. We said after they lost on the road to Bama that Georgia fans should not be worried, that they were going to be fine. They were going to bounce back. Lo and behold, they went to an SEC championship game. Like, I'm going to echo the same exact thing. They got put into a really difficult spot by this Alabama team, and it's problematic that Kirby can't beat Alabama. But the fact that they lost that middle 8 period of the game where Alabama scored right before the half, and then they scored right before the half, and then there really wasn't much of an opportunity since then for Georgia to plug their way back in. I think that because of the time of possession difference and that Alabama did such a good job of controlling there is why the game finished out the way that it did. You also have that unbelievable dropped pass that Gunnar Stockton had where he ripped it over the middle of the field to Taylor that should have been a touchdown. That would have been the game-breaking dagger that would have given Georgia the momentum to finish out the game because they were holding off Alabama from scoring. But Blake, I think for what you brought up a second ago, for Alabama to not have scored it all in the second half, which I think many fans might have overlooked that and forgotten that had happened, that was proof that Georgia was in a position to win the game. It just didn't bounce their way late in a battle between two good teams.
Well, listen, I mean, I don't think Stockton played bad, okay?
No.
He didn't play great, and they ran the football very efficiently. Bowens had a massive game, 10 yards a carry. 10 yards a carry, technically 9.9, and they were able to run the football. But, Joe, the lack of tackling and listen, you got away with one against Tennessee, right? Meaning you got punched in the mouth early and you're able to rally and respond on the road, which is a big deal. But you didn't really learn a lesson because you came out against Alabama, and this is not to take anything away from the University of Alabama. They were more hungry than you. They wanted it more than you. And listen, when you have two extremely talented teams, which both of them are extremely talented, you saw one go on the road that took it from you. And they did take it from you. Joe, they had the time of possession thing that you talked about, technically 36 minutes of time of possession. Like, you didn't have the ball enough. And when you did, you ran the football efficiently. I don't think that Georgia should panic. Scoring 21 points is not going to win you a lot of games. But your defense, again, this is the thing that I want to emphasize. They just flat out got out coached because you cannot – Joe, you talk about the secondary and things like that. You're right. But it's just more in a bigger detail. It's not tackling in open space in some instances. Joe, they gave up 13 conversions.
Yeah.
13 conversions. That cannot happen. It just cannot happen. That's how you lost the game. It wasn't – look, when games are that close, the team that is able to stay or get off the field is going to win. And again, nobody was more prepared in the country more than Ty Simpson, and you got beat for it.
And Blake, too, to be more specific about the ball not bouncing their way and a couple of very specific plays determine the outcome, in Alabama just being the team that executed better, I think that it was exemplified by their – Cash Jones ends up being the victim in this situation. Let's
talk about the LT Overton play.
Right. So, and I'm not trying to call out Cash Jones, but you're in this spot where it's 4th and 1. You try to hurry it up. You're in this really tight game against a team that you're running all over. You're finding really good success running the football. Big reason why I don't feel bad about this Georgia loss.
Bowens. Why are you going with anybody else?
Right. So you're in this position, though, Blake, where your offense is a lot more steady and consistent instead of the erratic play that it was last year with Carson Beck. You're not turning the ball over. You can actually establish the run and all of these things. Why not take a breather, get Bowens onto the field, and call something that you feel confident in instead of running an outside rushing play to the wide side of the field? And it felt like they knew exactly what was coming. And LT Overton was so gifted and athletic on that play that he just dominated and ended up bringing down Cash Jones. And then another play with Cash Jones, you were in a 3rd and 9 situation,
right,
where for some reason they threw a swing pass on 3rd and 9. The play calling on those two plays cost them the football game. It's just stupid little avoidable things that need to be more effectively executed. They need to be smarter.
Hold on. The play calling is bad. You're right. Let's not take anything away from it. Kirby not going for the field goal when you have seized all momentum and they haven't. The problem is, Joe.
I don't hate that going.
Let me tell you why I hate it. Because in the second half, you have literally gone, 15 minutes in the third quarter. You had 5 minutes left to go in the game. They had not scored in the second half. They have done nothing to show you that they could put a drive together in the second half to go down and score. If you do force a 3 and out, or you do get off the field on third down, didn't do it much, they hadn't scored, Joe, and how long? They literally had not scored. That's the point that would try to make here. How can you have a team not score the entire second half and not get the points when you have all the momentum? How? I'm sorry. That's on Kirby. You got to take the points and have the feel. I know you can Monday morning quarterback it, and Kirby's not really a guy that you can always or should even remotely close to Monday morning quarterback. Joe, they hadn't scored. Like, they literally in 25 minutes of football had not scored. They hadn't scored in 2 hours. And you don't want to tie the game when you have all the momentum? I'm sorry, it's a bad call.
Look, I don't completely disagree with your logic. I actually don't think that there's not, to me, a right or a wrong answer. I like the approach of being aggressive and recognizing that you're in a position to ice the game and everything is going your way. My problem is that instead of recognizing that and going, all right, let's take a beat. We're going to get into a huddle. We're going to talk this through, and we're going to pick the right play. You rushed it. I just think that the philosophy of what they were trying to do in that situation was not aligned with what they went about it. Like, you're in this spot and you're trying to take a risk, but you're not thinking through and you're not being very deliberate about how you're going to take that risk. I get what you're saying, though. The final sequences in the fourth quarter was where they cost themselves the game. And I would also argue the way that they allowed Alabama to start as hot as they did also cost them the game. They allowed Alabama to completely run away with it in the first 20 minutes of the game.
And then the last 20 minutes of the game, they couldn't score. Again, that's the point of me saying that you probably should have taken the field goal. SK says nobody stops Bama offense if the O-line blocks.
That was one of the best games that I have seen from that Alabama offensive line under Kalen DeBoer, and I think that is a very good point. When Ty Simpson had a shitload of time. That is something that he had a lot of time against that defense, so I don't disagree with that.
Well, and they didn't go away from the running game. Jam Miller had a longest run of 7 yards. He didn't run the ball for over 3 yards to carry.
Yeah.
So they still can't run the ball, and they're having to find ways to try to run it. But he did have a lot of time. And Georgia's pass rush that has been non-existent did not show up. Toast says lifetime contract for Brian Kelly. I know it's a troll at me, but not going to happen.
I have no comment.
Dick Bug says, where should LSU be ranked? Is BK offensively inept? All right, let's get into that game, Joe. Yeah. LSU goes on the road and loses to Ole Miss. Now, Ole Miss is a top 5 team in the country. Joe, when you recap this game, what are your thoughts? And should our good friends over at FanDuel boost Trinidad Chambliss up that Heisman Trophy list?
I don't think that Trinidad Chambliss is going to win the Heisman. But, Blake, I got to tell you what, man. I have not understood this debate, this conversation on if Austin Simmons should start after the way that Chambliss has played.
It's not going to happen.
I'm sorry for Austin Simmons, man, but Chambliss is perfect for what Lane Kiffin needs. This kid is electric. He's like watching a point guard. You know who he reminds me of? He reminds me a lot of Vernon Adams, who was an Eastern Washington quarterback who transferred up to Oregon. Smaller guy, didn't have the biggest arm, but was elusive and knew how to make the right plays on the run when he needed to. A lot of credit needs to go to the way that he played and the preparation that went into this by Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin coached a tremendous game. But the other side of that, Blake, sadly, is the fact that he outcoached Brian Kelly and specifically Joe Sloan. And I tweeted this multiple times. I know that the LSU fan base is in agreement with this. Joe Sloan's play calling is too predictable. It is redundant. It is uncreative. It is one of the simplest, most nerve-wracking offenses to watch after knowing what they had at hand when Denbrock was calling the offense when Jaden Daniels was there. And I know you got a completely different quarterback, Blake, but it is insane that we have gone from the Jaden Daniels Heisman season where the defense was a problem and your offense was insanely good, and now it's vice versa, to the point where the defense is on the field so much, they're clearly gassed and they're making mistakes as a result of it. There's a serious problem in Baton Rouge.
Would you bench Garrett Nussmeier?
I texted you this, and I really think that Garrett is, whatever injury has been talked about with him, his passes do not have 70% of the zip that it used to have. He has a big arm. He was underthrowing guys left and right. He was throwing ducks. The interception was a duck. The bad throws, the incompletions he had were ducks. I start Van Buren if the kid's not ready to go, because he's costing you games at the current moment. But
Joe,
sorry. No. I was just gonna say it almost doesn't even matter though, because is Sloan even going to call a good game?
Well, here's the problem that I have at the current moment. Okay, here's the conundrum. Look, you know, and I know that we sit here from an LSU perspective and do the coach's tape. Okay, coach's tape is just an all 22 copy.
Yeah,
he's missing too much. Meaning, I got to be real with you. There are some times where I thought Sloan, for what it's worth, and LSU. Joe, I got to say this. They're good play calls. You got to drag to a tight end on first down with nobody in the general vicinity of him. You throw it into triple coverage for a pick. You got Aaron Anderson wide open on a slant route on a linebacker, and he's got 4 steps. You throw an out route that falls incomplete. I thought the game plan for Ole Miss, to your point, and to add on to that, and talking about Ole Miss, Joe, they knew LSU would implode in on themselves, and they dropped 8. This is the second year in a row that Golding's done this because they knew that Garrett was going to do this. But the fact that they were the 120th ranked rush defense in the country, kept LSU to 57 rushing yards, is embarrassing. It's flat out embarrassing. And then you got a 5-star running back that you got in this past freshman class who then gets to the ball and starts running, and then you score. And then you don't go back to him. So where Ole Miss kept LSU in the game because of the 14 penalties, literally LSU kept Ole Miss in the game. I say Ole Miss in the game. Was not able to seize the game because of bad throws by Garrett, because you completely abandoned the running game on the worst team in the SEC statistically in stopping the run, and then you get in a 5-star kid in there who's got talent and you go away from him. Joe, what in the hell was that 2-point play call? That's the point.
That was awful. That awful. Was like you load up and everybody sees what's happening, and then you hand the ball off and it gets blasted. That was so stupid. That was the biggest one for me, whereas I put my hands up and I said, I'm out.
So dumb. But Joe, Trinidad Chambliss with his legs is dangerous. I think everybody wants to take a shot at LSU, and rightfully so. They looked horrible on offense. Joe, I still think that defense is not bad at all. You were on the field for how many plays and allowed how many points? They allowed 1 touchdown in the second half. 1. And they shouldn't. I mean, they're on the field for so long, of course, at some point that they were going to do it. But it just gets to a point in place where I said it on Thursday, and I'll repeat it for everybody here. It was never a matter of if LSU was going to get beat. It was only a matter of when LSU was going to get beat. And I think that you saw a team with a quarterback who, Joe, on all those third downs is able to use his legs and convert, is what ultimately nobody wants to talk about it, but it's what beat LSU. It's what makes Ole Miss that much more dangerous, because that kid can run and pick up first downs, and he's lethal with his legs. And, Joe, they're physical offensively. They are a very physical football team up front. And until people want to realize that Ole Miss will go downhill on you and use a running quarterback and then just methodically call things from within the game and out-scheme everybody, you better get ready for him. I don't know if he's a great passer, and he put the ball up in a lot of bad situations. And LSU converted on him on the pick, but they couldn't score, so it didn't matter. So the third down situation for LSU was bad, but it wasn't as bad as maybe statistically it looked like because they were on the field for so much. But, Joe, LSU does have a problem, and both sides I don't think played great, but Ole Miss is able to hang on because, look, Chambliss has been that guy. They didn't do anything special from the wide receiver room, but they were able to do enough to be able to win here.
I actually would say for the fact of what Chambliss was going up against, and I know that, as I mentioned, he benefited from the fact that LSU's defense was on the field as long as it was, and they very clearly, with the PIs that they had, you could see the mental fatigue starting to weigh on that group. I don't think that the yards that they gave up, it was actually only 480, actually sounds kind of low for how much they were on the field and what went down. I think that for the way that Chambliss played, knowing how DJ Lagway struggled and Cade Klubnik struggled, for him to go over 300 yards and to have just one interception in this performance and have some of the
fair
scrambles
from Fair State.
I'll give this kid a ton of credit, dude. I don't even actually, to be quite honest with you, I think he's out of eligibility right after this year.
I don't know. Know.
He's 23 years old. Oh yeah, I think he's a graduate.
They found him on Twitter.
Is that really how they found him?
No, Charlie Weiss Jr. found him on Twitter. He saw his film on Twitter and said, "Look, man, I mean, you want to come in here and compete?" And the kid competed, and the injury happened, and look what they are. And listen, I don't care what anybody says. I do think somebody's going to get over them defensively. LSU is just not the team to test them on that. They're not. But here's the thing. Chambliss he's got the magic, man. I had a buddy of mine today call me and says he's Allen Iverson with a football in his hands, and I kind of
that's a good comp. I actually don't hate that.
He really is from the way that he does things. LSU rushed him. Okay, he's going to run away from the pressure. LSU sits back. He's going to step up in the pocket and run. Joe, he's been there and done that, and you're not. Here's the thing: LSU tried to confuse him, and they couldn't.
No,
they just couldn't.
Former Notre Dame football recruit Allen Iverson. Fun fact. Washington State.
You saw that god awful gold helmet and says, "I'm going to play basketball."
I think he was Georgetown for some reason. Washington State's their next game, and here's the thing with Ole Miss, Blake.
Their schedule, man.
It's very favorable. They go to Georgia, which is going to be tough. They go to Oklahoma, which is going to be tough. But then they've got South Carolina, Citadel, Florida, Mississippi State. I said this to you pre-show, and this isn't me taking a shot at Ole Miss. I'm merely just pointing this out because they do have defensive deficiencies. We saw the yards that they gave up to Taylor Green in Arkansas and how many problems they had against mobile quarterbacks and just stopping the run. But, Blake, we're going to be in the SEC this year because of the way that the scheduling worked out. The best teams are probably not going to represent the SEC in the college football playoff this season. We're going to probably get, if Ole Miss finishes 10-2 or maybe even 11-1, they get in. Missouri's probably the same case. Missouri's a good team. I don't think they're one of the best SEC teams at the current moment. And there's a possibility, if things do go awry for Georgia or they go awry for Alabama and LSU, and even in Oklahoma and Texas, if all those teams are 9-3, all of them are not getting in. I'm just saying that there's a world we've got a weird group of SEC teams that make the playoff this year, and they might not be the best options to represent the conference if they want to get back to winning a title.
Well, with all due respect to LSU, they shouldn't even be worried about the playoffs.
Yeah, they got bigger issues to worry about.
They got bigger issues to worry about, and all of them are on offense. All right, Joe, I know we're going to be extended here, but
I got my battery thing figured out, so we can go as long as we want.
Okay.
We can go 3 hours if we wanted to.
Where should LSU be ranked? Big K offensively inept. I don't think BK's offensively inept. What I think is that he stuck with Sloan and stuck with Garrett, and neither one of them put in the work during the offseason. That's what I think.
I don't disagree with that. I think you need to go to Michael Van Buren and see if he brings you a spark. And if Garrett is as hurt as he is, he needs to sit. That's simply
They're not going to do it because they're going through a bye week this week. They're not going to do it, and they're going to let him rest, and timing's going to get thrown off. And listen, the Boo Birds will come out if you don't score on that first drive.
Oh, I bet.
And
I bet.
So, as someone who lived through the Les and Ed Orgeron era, get booed in that stadium. Watch what happens. They call it the craziest environment in the country. Get booed in it and see what happens.
Yeah.
Elks gifted 1, 2, 7 people memberships.
You guys being generous. Anyone who would like to join the Ruffino and Joe Show Discord, you can sign up for a membership. Those memberships, I believe, are randomly gifted to listeners. Elks shout out, who has been the most active person in the Discord. It's $4.99 to become a member, and then you get access to our Discord. We've had some fun whenever Blake or I has had time to kind of pop in there and be a part of the conversation, but it seems like we're building a nice little community of people to come hang out. So you can sign up for $4.99 per month. But Elks and Marshall, thank you guys for doing that.
Thank y'all. I didn't see Marshall. Oh, Marshall did that. Marshall gave 5.
Yeah.
Okay.
Elks gave 2, and then Marshall gave 5.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you so much, Marshall. I greatly appreciate it. All right. You know who could have used 5?
Who's that?
Florida State goes down to the Virginia Cavaliers in one of the best Friday night games that you will see all season. Joe, I just did not see this one coming. When you recap Florida State and Virginia, I know we were tweeting this during the whole game, but my gosh, what are your thoughts? This was an amazing game to start off the weekend.
I think what cost them, it's pretty simple. They are not developed enough, and they did not improve enough defensively.
They did not.
They didn't. There were a lot of issues with tackling, a lot, and their run defense was incredibly problematic. They gave up so many big plays and so many broken tackles, and they allowed Chandler Morris to escape on so many runs. They had no answer defensively. And as excited as we got about Florida State, I don't think that we should be in total panic mode and we throw them out the window and we say that they're cooked and Norvell's going to stink. I think that's overly reactive to the 100th degree. I also think there's been a lot of criticism of Malzahn, and I know that they didn't produce as much as many had hoped that they would in that game, but I still saw some really massive plays from Castellanos and Deuce Robinson.
Hold on. If you score 35 plus points and you're clamoring at your offense versus Virginia, then you're an idiot.
I think part of the argument that's been put out there is they should have scored more because UVA doesn't have a very good defense. I get it. I get the qualm, but it feels way more defensive because they just allowed so many explosives to a team that really should not have generated them. I'm not in panic mode.
211 yards on offense in the rushing game. That's not on Gus Malzahn.
I'm not in panic mode. I think that there's redeemability. I'm excited to see what happens with the Miami game, but this is just a really stupid loss that can't happen if you really want to win the ACC this year.
Chandler freaking Morris. I know he threw 3 picks. I get it. I don't care that he threw 3 picks, Joe, because he scored 5 touchdowns. He threw for 2. He ran for 3. Joe, I listen, you don't need a first-round quarterback to win college football games. This is the game, okay? At what point were you going to put a spy on Chandler Morris? At what point? And then when you did, he outran him. He threw some bad picks, and you converted on him. Joe, the 2 picks that he caught, you got 14 points off of it, and Malzahn was able to play complimentary football and get you back in the game. How many times were you going to allow Chandler Morris to make plays? And Joe, by the way, he ran for a 4th, and it got called back for a holding. You did not have an answer. And I think more than anything, the in-game adjustment not coming was a massive deal. How do you allow somebody to have 4 rushing touchdowns, 1 get called back? How do you allow that, Joe, in the red zone? That is what lost them the game. You look, the picks are the picks. It is what it is. Chandler Morris has been to more schools than anybody in the country, and you allowed him on third down mostly to continue to convert. Speaking of third down, by the way, Joe, Virginia went 7 of 13, above 50%. They kept staying on the field. It was a great game, but it was the Chandler Morris effect of being able to score in the red zone and them not being able to stop them that ultimately got Florida State beat. I don't want to look. Were you offensively crisp? No. You should, when you score 38 points, you should win. I'm sorry, you should win. You can say whatever you want about Gus. I don't think Castellanos played good at all, to be honest with you. And I think that he's limited as a thrower. But I saw a team, again, not take an opponent seriously, and Virginia was going for broke. And Chandler Morris put that team on his back and willed them to a win, man.
Well, that ultimately was the dagger for them, Blake, is that I think you put it well saying that you overlooked an opponent. And this is the problem that we have at the current moment with Norvell that ultimately is going to hold them back this upcoming season. They can't overlook a team like UVA. And I got to be honest with you. I know that UVA is receiving votes. I believe they actually were even ranked after the victory that they had. This is not a good Virginia team. It's not. They're probably not going to be ranked for very long. I'd be shocked to find if there are even UVA fans. Actually, surprisingly, know a lot of people who went to UVA.
Well, there were enough to storm the field at the best rate that we've ever seen. That was awesome. I hope they didn't trample nobody, though.
I don't think that they did. I think everybody was fine. You can't overlook opponents like that. And Florida State has a relatively survivable remaining schedule after the Miami game. Their next most challenging game appears to be against Florida after the Miami game. The problem is, though, Blake, is Georgia Tech survives against Wake Forest. And now you are in a trailing position. You are going to be chasing Georgia Tech for that second spot in the conference. If they don't beat Miami this weekend, Blake, it is going to dig themselves into a very, very serious hole. And my big issue, and this is a little bit of a quick look ahead, I think Miami is going to win this thing easily. They can't stop the run, and they give up too many big plays because they don't tackle. That's not going to work against Miami. Y'all see what happens when people don't fit in, do their run fits correctly, and they don't come downhill?
On that team and that offensive line coming off a bye week?
Recipe for disaster, Blake.
Recipe for disaster. But Miami better not overlook somebody, too. I mean, like, you can't I don't think they will because it's a rival. Joe, I got to defend Florida State on something that I know they think I hate them. I don't. The reset of the play clock was bullshit. I know that Florida State didn't score in the second overtime, so you can be mad at the play clock all you want to and them resetting it for the 2-point conversion. I get all of that. The problem with that is that you didn't score. And if you would have scored and the Deuce Robinson back of the end zone catch is actually a catch, fine, and you lose because you don't get a 2-point conversion, I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you. It didn't matter. You gave up 46 points. You gave up 46. And, Joe, the thing that I would say, you're right. If you want to talk about Florida State was their tackling wasn't out. But I got to give Virginia some credit here because I feel like it's been all about Florida State. I felt like I had a culture. I felt like I felt the culture being immersed with Virginia. Now, I know we've been talking a lot about Florida State here, and I know that Virginia is the 24th team in the country. They lost to NC State a couple of weeks ago, and Morris didn't have a completely great game. But, Joe, here's what I'd say. Over the last couple of weeks, you should have known that this was coming if you're Florida State. And this is what makes it worse. Against NC State, Taylor ran for 150. Wiley ran for 150. Taylor went over the century mark against Stanford in total yardage. And then you had Florida State where he went over the century mark again, almost pushing 150, where they want to get the running backs involved. And when Tony Elliott was at Clemson and he had guys and they threw the running back the ball a lot and how they ran, how did you not know to cover a wheel route? I don't think they were prepared a lot. They looked like a team that was very unprepared, and Tony Elliott and company took it to them. So not good. Not good at all. All right. I don't know how much we're going to talk about this next game, but, and Ducks for Life, we see your super chat here. Notre Dame absolutely demolishes Arkansas, comes down to Arkansas and into Fayetteville and puts the smacketh on that candy ass. Sam Pittman has been fired today, which Joe will talk a lot about, but some quick notes in reference to the game before we get to Sam Pittman and the Arkansas job here. Hold on. You went for a fake punt up 42-13. And I got to be real with you. I know you're going to scream at me. It's complete Bush League.
I already screamed at you. I'm not yelling at you a second time.
I just got to mention this again. I loathe it. I hate it. It got me. It pissed me off to no end. I'm just going to say, listen, when you do stupid shit like that, it comes back to bite you in the ass. And karma is a real deal. You don't run fake punts on a lame duck coach up 42-13. And I hate it. But that is the only bad thing that I got to say about Notre Dame in this one. Holy car. See what I did there?
I completely disagree with you. I really don't think it matters that much. If your team is that awful and they've given up, that is on you as a head coach.
Remember when I beat you in NCAA football and I ran up the score? What if I would have went for fake punts?
You didn't run up the score. It was a close game. Yeah, liar. Blake, my only quick Notre Dame thought before we dig into Pittman, because I know we still do have we still have quite a few other things that we got to get to. I was blown away by CJ Carr, 22-30 for 354 yards and 4 touchdowns. He looked so freaking natural. I think the fact that he has gotten better every single week, I don't care that it was against a bad opponent. The throws that he made in that game required some serious poise.
Yes.
The most important part about all of this is that Notre Dame has not had a passer like this in a very long time. Maybe not even since Brady Quinn. There's a path in a real world where CJ Carr ends up being more productive and more impactful for Notre Dame's future than Brady Quinn was. I really love what he brings to the table, and I think that should be a reason why Notre Dame fans should be excited about the direction of this offense, because, Blake, they really showed a version of them that can be really, really impactful in multiple years to come, depending on how long CJ Carr stays there. But I am still going to bitch about the fact that they gave up 365 total yards of offense to a team that gave up midway through the game.
I think this is the worst defense in the power forward that I've seen this year. It's Arkansas.
Okay.
It's not just, listen, this is not to take away from Notre Dame, because look at Ole Miss, right? Like, not saying that, I'm not trying to take away from Notre Dame before I say this. Joe, this defense is horrific. Arkansas, and we'll talk about this in a minute, does not have the players. They don't have the support staff. Joe, Vandy pays their off-field assistants more than the University of Arkansas. That's why Dave Shue made of SEC Unfiltered before he left. That's why he asked Sam Pittman that question at SEC Media Days. They don't care. But this is the most impressive thing for Notre Dame. I'll give them this. You didn't take it lightly, and you kept your foot on their throat, and you demolished them. You did exactly what you needed to do at every single level. I do feel like the secondary didn't really prove anything to me. You got some more time to do that. But CJ Carr, man, that kid can play. And I got to say this too. The run game, like, I love Mike Denbrock a lot. I do. I don't understand some of the stuff about running into numbers. Mike had an issue when he was at LSU of running into numbers because he thought he had an athletic quarterback to set things up. But, man, early in the game, I was like, why in the hell are you running into numbers so much? But at this point, I'm nitpicking. But this team for Arkansas, this defense is god-awful.
Well, the obvious thing, they gave up. Like, let's just keep it as simple. Let's keep it a buck. Like, it doesn't need to be any more complicated than that.
Yeah, they were done.
They stopped trying.
Good on Notre Dame for not letting up, because that's an easy spot to be on the road and let up and just get out of there.
Right. And then, so that was part of what I think some people this week were kind of talking about, where they're trying to bounce back against Notre Dame after the Memphis loss, and there's a real chance to really rally around that performance and try and rally around Sam Pittman. It could have absolutely have been an upset spot for Notre Dame that could have derailed their season if they overlooked them. And they went up big early and they just kept going. They took the will out of them, completely took the will out of them. The fact that Arkansas played the way that they did, Blake, I think really showed why Pittman was fired as quickly as he was. And one thing, by the way, that I tweeted this, I find it really stupid to me, this concept where programs will keep a guy that is so far on his last legs, like has overstayed his welcome, and they give him a little bit more of the start of the next year, and then they fire him 5 games into the season. What was the point of this? You wasted a year.
Because of the buyout of being over 500.
I think that is, I mean, if we're going
to save money, man. I mean,
you got to call it what it is. We're wasting a year of potential growth and success because we're trying to nickel and dime a
But
buyout.
getting into the Sam Pittman firing, so I guess let's get into it. Here's the thing. I don't know if Arkansas, the administration, really gives a shit. I don't. Because, again, so here's the real truth. Nice people don't get fired often.
Yeah, Pittman was a very good guy, so he's
very good guy. Yeah. So I understand that part. You didn't give him the resources to do this either. You didn't, because you thought he was a lame duck. Arkansas is not an easy job, guys. It's just not. When you got to go up against LSU, Bama, Texas A&M every year, and they're outspending you. What did you want him to do? What did you want him to do when you wanted to go get Calipari and you gave him more TV money than any other coach in the SEC? What did you want Sam Pittman to do? That's the real question here. Ole Miss took your entire freaking roster, and you laid down and didn't help Sam at all. But Joe, you had to make the move. Hopefully that revigorates some people, and you gave it to Bobby P., who's a snake in the grass. I'm sorry, but
they better not promote him, by the way. The whole rumor of him.
He's the interim head coach.
No. I mean, permanently promote him. Like, after say they start looking good, they should not give him the head coaching role.
I agree. But see, here's the thing. Yes. Here's the thing, though. The thing about it is not only is Bobby P. a snake, you convinced Sam Pittman and made Sam Pittman take this man as his OC. Like, let me give you an example of something. I don't know, and listen, you can call me conspiracy theorist all you want, but I'm telling you, the actions are showing up on the field. Joe, if they go out there and they play better, I don't know if you don't look at Bobby P. and say, man, why are you running a draw against Ole Miss on 3rd and 5 when you can go in and score? I mean, 3rd and 9, and score. Why are you being lame and a lame duck and not aggressive anymore when you have a chance to, on the road, go beat Ole Miss? How? This whole thing fucking reeks. I'm sorry, but it reeks. And you better reset. But here's the truth. If you're Arkansas, if you have the money and you have the resources to be a fantastic program. But the bottom line truth is you're one of the worst teams in the SEC, almost dead last in the SEC when it comes to paying off-field personnel. You're one of the worst teams in the country at doing so many little critical things that can make you a good brand. Joe, they got money. Nobody, literally, nobody other than maybe the University of Texas has more money than Arkansas, whether you want to admit it or not. They have 12 billionaires that can donate to them. 12 billionaires. You ever heard of Walmart? You ever heard of Tyson Chicken? It could be a sleeping program, but you keep putting yourself in situations where you don't want to have success in the most important thing to have success in. Joe, it's a joke. And then you fire a good man over because of it. Yes, sir. You fire him over it. So, Joe, they were lame. It was a lame duck situation. They shouldn't have kept him. You're right. But when are they going to take it seriously?
Well, so this is the question now, and you see these shortlists for
I would not go to Arkansas.
Yeah, and more importantly, are we supposed to just assume that they're going to open up their checkbooks to hire the biggest names out there on the market? Now, there are some good options for them. I think that Jeff Traylor at UTSA is worth considering. John Summerall is going to get brought up the Tulane coach. He's somebody that always gets brought up in these kind. Golesh is probably going to get brought up. The UCF head coach or USF head coach is somebody worth considering. I do wonder, and I think that ultimately with the best move to really aggressively go after is if there's suddenly a financial commitment, I would aggressively pursue Rhett Lashley. I would go all in on going after Rhett Lashley. I need somebody who's recruited that region of the country. And as you said, it really shouldn't be that hard for this program to build up into one of the better ones in the SEC. But the question is now, as you've just mentioned here, is there suddenly going to be more of a financial commitment? Are they suddenly going to be aggressive? And are they maybe going to pull a Virginia Tech where after they fire their guy, they announce that there's going to be more of a commitment financially to the program? I do think you bring up a good point that even if there is more money being directed towards football, do we trust the current administration to actually handle it correctly?
With all due respect, what has Rhett Lashley done this year that gives you the confidence?
Well, he's still a great coach. I would take a
agree. I love him to death. But, I mean, at the same time, how serious do you want to be about this?
Who would you go after? I jokingly keep tweeting Dabo. I keep thinking that they should pull a Calipari and go get Dabo.
Joe, if you had your choice, not named Dan Lanning, if you had your choices of coaches today, who would you go get?
If I'm Arkansas.
Yes. Meaning you.
Lashley was an Arkansas quarterback. So, that's the first guy that I'm calling and I'm trying to
outside of Lanning and Lashley, who would you go get if money was no object?
If I could, James Franklin or Dabo Swinney. I would try and convince them. I would try and convince them to leave.
Be serious.
That is me being serious. You have two coaches who are in situations where they've hit their ceiling at the current programs that they're at. And I think that you literally just did this with Calipari. You just did this with Calipari.
Well, that's my point. Well, that's kind of my point here. Do you take a shot at one of these massive names and see if you can hit? I mean, I got to be real with you. I mean, Lane Kiffin's going to be the most talked about person in the country. And that Florida job is going to come open. So now you're battling with a school inside your own conference. So, Joe, they can't waste money here. They got to go for broke. Got to go for broke. Joe, I got to ask you this other question. Does Auburn come open? So
we're kind of. By the way, we're on a path to have a lot of jobs open.
I know. So you start getting into a situation where, okay, Joe, you better be willing to spend the money and you better go for broke. You better.
They're going to get boxed out by some other teams that are.
Yeah, they're going to get boxed out. So, and I got to be real. If I'm Rhett Lashley, I'm not taking that job. I am not taking.
He's from Arkansas.
You know why? Because even though I'm from there, you got to look at a situation and say I have the least paid support staff in the country. I don't have great in-state recruiting, not like the state of Texas, and I don't know if I'm going to get the financial support now that they have devoted into college basketball the way that they have. No, I wouldn't. By the way, SMU, let's talk about them. Oh, they spent $50 million to get into a conference and are paying their way without TV revenue money.
I would still argue that there is a grander path to success at Arkansas than there is at SMU, though.
Is it easier to win the SEC at Arkansas or win the ACC at SMU? He almost won it last year.
That's a very good point, but it just depends on his values on if he is committed to building up a program that he's from and that he played for.
It's the toughest job in the country when you look at, from a financial standpoint, a team that and a university that has the money that doesn't want to get to it. It's a flat out joke. Elk says with a $2 super chat, stuff like that is why people hate Notre Dame. No respect.
What is he talking about? Oh, stop it!
Fake punt.
Elks also said this to us earlier that told you all not to overreact to Stockton.
I don't think Stockton played bad.
No, I think that a couple bad drops, a couple of misfires.
If that post hits for a touchdown, we're not having this conversation today.
No, it'd be a completely different conversation.
Ducks for Life says, first live I've caught in a while, guys. Let's go. Dante Moore for Heisman. Go Ducks.
Oh, yeah. Hell yeah.
They look good, man. I'm going to tell you, I have a number one team in my power rankings this week.
Wait. Oregon's your number is going to be your number.
They're going to be my number.
I'm not moving Miami. I'm going to move Ohio State back, which is going to piss off our Ohio State listeners.
We need to stop pissing off Ohio State before we get in trouble.
Yeah, who cares?
Last one before we get out of here. Joe, Auburn and Texas A&M. My God. Thoughts on the game?
I'm going to save my Auburn take for a second.
Okay.
In a second. Blake, we need to start talking about this Texas A&M squad. I know that they weren't.
Before the Notre Dame game.
I know that they weren't perfect, and I know that they had a couple of mistakes. Marcel Reed had that one bad turnover that almost helped Auburn get back into the game. But, dude, I'll tell you this much. Cassius Howell in that defense, that defensive line, can get after quarterbacks. That Auburn offensive line is not as bad as they've looked over the last couple of weeks. They've got some good bodies. They've just played really poorly, and it's a Jackson Arnold problem. Doesn't know how to sense pressure and understand his internal clock. I also think that A&M's run game, when they're much more deliberate about leaning into it, is incredibly dangerous. Moss, Daniels, Owens, 3 deep when they're all available and they're all healthy and they can turn to them. Blake, I think that this is a legit threat for A&M to go on a run this year. I wouldn't think it's a hot take to say that A&M right now is more of a threat in the state of Texas than Texas is.
I agree with that. They're the best team in Texas.
Not over Texas Tech. Blake, my point is that I think that this A&M team looked in the mirror after the win and recognized that they had to change some things, and they aggressively pivoted.
I got to say this. They look better defensively, clearly. The only touchdown they gave up was because of an interception that got brought back to the 2 by Xavier Atkins. However, this Auburn offense is that bad. It is that bad. I mean, Joe, the Notre Dame game still looms large in my mind. Allowing what you allowed against UTSA looms in my mind. When you play a more complete team, are they going to be able to take advantage of you? Offensively, here's what I'd say about A&M. You're able to win a game 41-38 on the road in a hostile northern environment, and then you're able to win a 16-10 game when your offense just isn't clicking. And that's what good teams do. And they can attack you offensively in so many different ways. The passing game was off a little bit sometimes. And they were able to run the football. They couldn't convert on critical third downs. Didn't matter. Le'Veon Moss looked great. Had a couple of massive runs. But their defense was able to do better to Auburn than what Oklahoma did, to be quite frank with you. And they got after him, and they got after Jackson Arnold, and he had no answer. But they are that bad on offense, is Auburn. So I want to see A&M continue to build off of that defensive performance and go from there. But they are a dangerous team, man. They got a lot of talent, and their head coach is really good.
Yeah, and I think that that's the biggest part here is that I respect the hell out of Elko, and I think the way that he has handled the necessary adjustments that needed to be made in order for this team to improve after the Notre Dame game is why I feel that they're positioned effectively. They've got Mississippi State next. They then get Florida. They then get Arkansas.
So there's a past Mississippi State, man, not after this past weekend.
But they get that game at home, dude. I really think.
I know. I'm not picking them to lose. I'm just saying.
There's a shot that we're talking about Texas A&M coming into the LSU game at 7-0. And that game is going to have huge implications on it. But they proved to me a lot of the questions that I had for them defensively. I think that they are, as I said, they are much more of a legit threat than I anticipated coming into the Auburn game. Blake, it's time to start Deuce Night. I would move past Daniels. I would just go straight to Deuce Night. You have nothing to lose. Actually, you have everything to lose, Hugh Freeze. Let me rephrase that. You have everything to lose at the current state of this team. Jackson Arnold cannot read and assess pressure. He can't. There were times untouched defenders because he clearly didn't effectively communicate where the offensive line was supposed to be moving.
Mm-hmm.
He is not doing an effective enough job, and he's setting himself up for failure. They need to go to Deuce Knight because Deuce Knight, how much worse can Deuce Knight be?
Jackson
Seriously.
Arnold's horrible. He is a horrible quarterback, but here's the problem. They probably paid him a lot of money to go there, and they don't want to move off of him. And they made a horrible – what did Jackson Arnold do at Oklahoma that made you think you could do this?
Well, you and I heard from enough people that there were other quarterbacks that they had reached out to that they were trying to get that kept saying no. And
well,
this was like their
I wonder why.
option. This was like the fifth option that they had to turn to.
They made Peyton Thorne a worse quarterback than what he was. I'm fully convinced of it. I'm fully convinced. I mean, because the kid that was at Michigan State did not look like the same kid. Auburn, Hugh might be on the chopping block, man, and I do think that might be his only saving grace. They got to make a move. Jackson Arnold's bad. Joe, the only touchdown they had was literally because of Xavier Atkins. That DJ Durkin's got another great defense, dude.
Well, so this is the one thing that I wrote down is that their defense is elite and it's extremely athletically gifted. And the funniest thing with all of that,
Auburn and LSU are pointing at each other saying, look at us.
Well, but who is going to hire DJ Durkin? Like, seriously, who is going to go when this thing falls apart? Who is going to come in and grab DJ Durkin? This is going to be the funniest layer that gets added to all of this. Is someone's going to just randomly end up with a new defensive coordinator. Notre Dame, pick up the phone when Hugh Freeze gets fired and go and get DJ Durkin, please, for the love of God.
Because, dude, he had some great A&M defenses. He's got a great defense at Auburn, and they can't win games. They should have beaten A&M on the road. They should have beaten A&M. They gave up 16 points, dude. 16. I mean, that is insane.
With all that speed that they have?
Right. That went into Notre Dame and obliterated that defensive secondary. And you God.
I'm telling you, Notre Dame, pick up the phone. Go and get DJ Durkin. When Hugh Freeze gets fired at the end of the season, if DJ Durkin is not in blue and gold and you are trying to force Chris Ash again, I am going to be so pissed.
Oh, man. DJ making a lot of money. Hey, got a question for you. Does Arkansas pick up the phone?
For Durkin as a DC or a head coach?
I mean, I understand Durkin had the situation at Maryland.
Yeah. I still think that they need to go after Lashley.
We'll see. We'll see. All right, a couple of super chats before we get out of here. Lions says, was worried about Chip Kelly leaving Ohio State. Then Hartline goes and calls a perfect game. Sayan's the top 3 quarterback in the country.
I do think that was like a big thing. They called a great game. I'm not ready to go top 3 for Sayan. I think that we saw this weekend a couple other guys emerge and really step up. Like Simpson and Dante Moore would be at the top of that conversation, and we still have to put Lenore Sell. I know he didn't play great this past game, but
Chambliss over him right now if it's based off of just what's happened.
Yeah, I love Sayan. I think Sayan's a good player, and I think that everything went perfectly against Washington, and it was a really well-called game by Hartline. Hartline needs to keep doing that, though, man, and they need to start building momentum if they want to continue this.
Ryan Day wins a natty, and he looks more composed than he ever has. Good for him.
Yeah.
We'll see him against a couple of better opponents, and we'll go from there. But Washington really fought hard, and go for Jeff Fish and company. All right. Marshall says, takes out some of the ridiculous calls by the SEC refs, and Auburn gets blown out.
Take out some of the rest.
SEC refs are the best. He's being sarcastic.
I know.
Xavier Atkins is a dude, man. I mean, but Joe, the only score that they could get was because it was at the 2-yard line. I mean, I'm considering that a defensive touchdown. I'm not saying Auburn. I mean, technically Auburn's offense scored, but not really.
Yeah, there has been admittedly a lot of bad officiating in the SEC, and I know this has been a talking point that we've had. It's impacted a lot of games.
God awful. It's the worst in all of college football. All right, we'll see y'all tomorrow. Massive week, Joe, so we went a little bit over here. We'll see y'all tomorrow. Y'all have a great night. Peace.